Here's the interesting one. Well, I guess they're both interesting when it comes to the numbers because you look at the Chiefs getting points here. Patrick Mahomes looks like he's not going to play, or at least that's what this line is indicating to me. So it's Carson Wentz for the Chiefs. But this is a Chiefs team that has a really good defense and a really good run game. Can I sell you on the Chiefs getting points here?
No. I think it's the Texans. You know what? I take that back. I would look at another under here, I think is what I would look at. Because the Chiefs have been an under team this season. I'm not really convinced that Carson Wentz is going to move the football for them. And by the way, even with Patrick Mahomes, it's not like the Chiefs' offense has been explosive. I know they've been winning games, but if you look at the numbers, like the Chiefs, they generally scored 21 points or less most games. They haven't been that dominant offense that just drops these massive numbers. They just haven't. That's not who they are. They play really good defense. They've had some really good luck, and they find a way to get it done. And then the Texans are a team. Their numbers drop across the board when they are playing away from home. They like to feed Joe Mixon a lot. So I actually think the under is the best play here. I don't really know what to do with the Chiefs getting points with Carson Wentz because obviously we're talking about the most important position on the field. And how is Carson Wentz going to look? Like, no idea. We know his history with the Chiefs. Yeah, maybe Andy Reid can set something up for him and put him in a position to ball out, but I'd rather look at the total.
I think if there's any coach who can put a quarterback in a position to succeed, it's Andy Reid, is it not? You know, one of the most talented offensive minds in football. I think that there is some sort of game plan that he can draw up to at least keep this game close. So I don't think I'm buying in on the Texans as favorites here. Like, maybe they win, but maybe it just doesn't make my card. So I'm not going to bet on this one. How about this one? The Ravens and the Steelers. The Ravens are laying 6.5. The Steelers have had the Ravens number over the past few years. We saw what happened in the first go-round. Lamar Jackson looked like a mere mortal. So now this spread is a touchdown. You know, 6.5 points in a division rivalry game. But we have some injuries looming for the Steelers. TJ Watt popping up on the injury list after an injury on Sunday. And we know that George Pickens remains to be out as well. So 6.5 points. This almost seems too good to be true, Jenks. Does this line seem a little fishy to you?
Yeah, it sure does. Ravens minus 6.5. First of all, the under is also a good play. I love a ton of unders this week. 46.5, that seems way too high. The under is hit 8 straight times when these two teams play. There's a reason why this is the black and blue division. But not only that, haven't we seen time and time again, if there's any coach in the NFL that can slow down Lamar Jackson, like it's Mike Tomlin and the Steelers defense? I think you have to worry about TJ Watt because it's a tough thing, right? Historically, the Steelers do a great job of keeping Lamar in check. But if their best player is out, all of a sudden that defense takes a dramatic drop. So when I saw minus 6.5, it screams Steelers. But when you see a number that seems this obvious, it makes me think, okay, I'm missing something here.
Yeah, the Steelers all time without TJ Watt, 1-10. It is not going well when the Steelers do not have TJ Watt on that defense. But again, they don't need to win the game. They just need to keep it close. I think I would lean towards the points in that one, at least if you're getting 6 or 6.5 points. And then finally on Sunday, we get Browns, Bengals, Giants, Falcons, Patriots, Bills. I know we don't have a ton of time, but let me ask you about a narrative question when it comes to the Bengals and the Browns. So we know the Bengals traditionally have struggled against the Browns. Is that something to take into account here? For some reason, Joe Burrow does not have a good record against the Browns.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but maybe it's because it's the Battle of Ohio. Maybe that has something to do with it. But ultimately, with the way Jameis has been throwing the ball, and I mean throwing a lot of picks, I think he has 8 interceptions in 3 games, and Joe Burrow is playing the best football of his career, just broke his own franchise record for touchdowns in a season, now has 36, I believe, and also the Bengals are trying to slip into the playoffs. I think I might actually lay it with 7.
Ooh, 7 points though in a divisional
a big
matchup?
Number. Yeah.
Joe Burrow is 2-5 against the Browns. It's hard to believe. All right.
I also think A, the Commanders need to get healthy because they're super banged up right now. But B, doesn't this line seem like a little short. Like it seems short to me when you look at how the Eagles have been playing. So this feels like a classic divisional field goal game to me. And also Washington has to play better than they did against the Saints. They did not look good. They tried to give that game away, and they really relied on Jaden Daniels, who was an absolute witch in that game. But I do think the Eagles coming in, having 110 straight, playing as well as they have, it just feels like to me, and I need to look at the early money, it feels like the public will just hammer the Eagles here. And I don't necessarily think it's the right side. Washington can play a lot better than they did against the Saints. And also, when it's a divisional game, you know how it is. It's just different. So I think Washington +4 interests me. If it gets down to 3, then the Eagles are probably the right side. This is one of those games where depending right where that number ends up is probably what side you want to bet.
Well, coincidentally, it's at 3 as we speak. And here's the funny part of this, where you should have a little red flag that goes up when you see something like this. Because over at BetMGM, 81% of the bets are on the Eagles. But yet, this line moved from 4 to 3. Jenks, what does that signal to you?
Sharp action is what that means. That means some respected money came in and moved the number. So we've seen someone who is better than the average Joe come in and say, you know what, I like the Commanders +4. And that's when the books say, okay, we've got the public all over one side, but you know who matters more? This person who is a respected bettor in the betting community. So you're seeing kind of reverse line movement there. That means the Commanders probably the right side if you get the Commanders at +4. But again, just like we were saying, if it's 3, then maybe it's different. But at 4, I would look at Washington.
Yeah, so if you're new to betting, it's always like an alert if you see a majority of the money on one side and yet the line moves the other direction. So that's what we're talking about, that reverse line movement. So something to keep in mind if you're looking to bet on the Commanders and Eagles game this week. Let's go back to that Lions game for a second. So the Lions are a team that's had a rash of injuries as well, but the Bears coming off a short week, obviously lost to the Vikings last night. So the Lions like 7.5 on the road. Do you think that Detroit gets back to domination station on some of these games?
You know, I think I might lean Bears here. But I am not going to bet this game. The Lions are crazy banged up right now. Like, this is going to be a real issue for the Lions. Now, we know Hutchinson is out for the season. David Montgomery is out for the season, even though he's going to get a second opinion on his knee. He's got a sprained MCL. They also have a myriad of injuries on the defensive line. They just lost another defensive lineman for the season. They lost 2 cornerbacks in that game against the Bills. Like, if you look at the Lions injury report, I believe they had 13 guys on the injury report, and that was before on the IR before that game against the Bills, in which they just lost player after player after player. So I know the Lions are a deeper team than most, and Dan Campbell, like most coaches in the NFL, will preach next man up, but it's still a divisional game. Yes, the Bears are terrible. I do not want to bet this game, but at 7 and a hook, Bears haven't been home in a month. Bears at home, where they're a different team, against a really banged-up Lions team, I think might be able to keep it within a touchdown.
I think that's one that I will not be betting on because I certainly don't want to trust the Bears with my money either after that debacle last night. So maybe I won't. So locally, the Titans game will be the big one, obviously, for us here in Nashville. But listen, I think everybody's kind of rooting for the Titans to just lose out at this point. And here's where this one is kind of tricky to handicap. Right now, the Colts laying 4.5, total 42.5. We're not so sure who's going to be playing quarterback for this one. Will Levis was benched last game, so maybe we get Mason Rudolph after the game. Brian Callahan was pretty non-committal on who the quarterback is going to be moving forward. So I'm not sure how to handicap this one because Mason Rudolph, I think, is a big step up. He at least, gives the team a chance to win. And when you're looking at a Colts team that makes so many mistakes, how do you go forward with a team like that? Because you could look at it on one side of the coin and say, okay, maybe in this game, Jonathan Taylor's not going to drop the ball, a foot before the end zone. And maybe if they can clean up some of those mistakes, they can win this game. And they're supposed to. They're 4.5-point favorites. But can you trust teams like that make like really bad mistakes?
I mean, surely they can clean those up, I guess. But man, do you really? Oh my God, this is just a bad team that was so sloppy. Like
Right.
it's those mistakes are just they're coach killers because they're preventable. Like when you're
Mm.
dropping a ball right before the goal line, and Jonathan Taylor's a vet now, or they tried that trick play. My God, which was one of the ugliest
Ugh.
things I've seen all season long. Like guys, like these things are preventable. Like, what are you doing? So the Titans are. I think what you're doing here is this is really not about the Colts being that good at all. This is about how bad the Titans are. And I hate to say that because I know that the Titans are your team. But this is another game where I'm like, do I really want to lay 4.5 with the Colts? If they try to get cute again, what's going to happen here? Hopefully they learn from their mistakes against the Broncos. Because think about it. If Jonathan Taylor scores in that game, they get the extra point. They go up 20-7 in that game. All of a sudden they get blown out. So you would think there is a good team in there somewhere. They should be 7-7. Here they are at 6-8. I guess I'll lean Colts, but I don't feel comfortable laying 4.5 with them.